For the extent of this lesson, we will be in the book of Proverbs, so you can hold it right here. For those of you who are here at the 9 o'clock, this is March 21st, 2014. What is that mess? You used to have to look at that. We're better now. The great folly of the fool, Proverbs 3 and verse 35. What we're going to do this morning is the Lord gives us time, as we'll read through the book of Proverbs, the passages that relate to the fool, and to let the lesson be taught, to see what the Bible has to say about this foolish individual. I'm well aware, and I'm reminded often by my son, that it is not wise to call someone a fool, that you should not call anyone a fool, and he is right. Matthew 5 and verse 22, Jesus says, "Whoever says, 'You fool,' shall be in danger of hell fire." In the context of those passages in Matthew chapter 5, Jesus gives a clause there, "without a cause." And so he will say in Matthew 23 twice to the scribes and to the Pharisees, "Thou fool." So he's not contradicting his word or his will. The point is, don't say it without a cause. That this would be searched out and verified, that this is foolish behavior in its nature, and those who engage in such things, the Bible does not hesitate to call a fool. So Proverbs 3 and verse 35 says this, "The wise shall inherit glory, but shame shall be the legacy of fools." Boy, if we stopped right there, that'd be enough for us to be concerned about whether we're a fool or not, or whether we're wise or not. The wise shall inherit glory, and shame is going to be the legacy. All that's left behind for the fool is shame. That's what's left. That is what their legacy is. And so Proverbs, as we look at it this morning, is a series of powerful truths that are used to impart wisdom. These are truths in principle. The Holy Spirit has given them mostly to Solomon to share with us, that we might know the will of God and that we would have these proverbs of wisdom before us. Proverbs 1 and 2, as this book begins, it says the Proverbs of Solomon, the son of David, king of Israel. "To know wisdom and instruction, to perceive the words of understanding." Verse 3, "To receive the instruction of wisdom, justice, judgment, and equity. To give prudence to the simple, to the young man knowledge and discretion." We just sang a song about how shall the young secure their hearts. This is how, brothers and sisters, and to those here who are young ones, especially if you're interested in Bible reading and you're relatively young in age, you're in middle school, high school, and you want to know, what's a good book to read? I would just highly recommend the book of Proverbs. There are truths and principle, and even at a young age, you can read through these Proverbs and start to see people in your life, both with the wise man and then him who acts foolishly, that we would connect this to people in our own lives, that, oh, I see that in so-and-so. But also, there's a reflection there for us to look into that mirror and say, is this me? Do I behave this way? Do I live this way? Do I say these things? And does this describe who I am? We all want to be wise. We all have that little bit of envy for the individual who's just extremely wise. The one that everyone comes to, seems to know a little bit about everything under the sun. And they've demonstrated their wisdom by their life, their behavior, and people are drawn to that. Help me. I know you know. Guide me, lead me, help me. And so if we're going to understand how wisdom is gained and how one keeps that wisdom, we have to know what the opposite is. Those who are wise understand the principle of the fool very well, because it helps them avoid playing that role. And so that's what we'll do this morning. We're going to look at the fool as is given to us in the book of Proverbs. And I want to give you just a couple of basic truths that I see when we look at these Proverbs. The fool is defined as one who hates wisdom and walks in folly. That's obvious. Disdains wisdom and then goes off and does what they want to do, and it is always folly. It is always foolishness. They don't lack mental power. I don't want us to misunderstand the fool in Proverbs. It's not that they are unintelligent or the IQ is so low that we would say, oh, well, there's one. That is not what we're talking about. They don't lack mental power. They misuse their mental power. They believe that their decision is right, and they will march forward despite all of the warnings and all of the counsel to say, no, I'm different, I'm going to do it my way, and it's going to work out just fine because it's me. That is the nature of the fool. They don't lack mental power. They can hear wisdom, they just refuse to accept it. The fool always thinks they can safely disregard the eternal principles of God's righteousness. And that's even more important for us as we talk about spiritual things. That they think, the fool says in his heart, I will be safe, I will be secure in misbehaving before God or in disregarding His word. There's a warning in Deuteronomy that speaks of a man and says, let him not leave with a joyful heart thinking that he is in safety when he defies the will and the word of God. He is not in safety. He is in great harm. He is in danger's way. And he seems to be the only one that doesn't know that. You see, the fool is very, very dangerous to himself, and he's dangerous to those who he may have an impact on in their lives. This is the Bible's description of the fool. Proverbs 12 and verse 15. We're going to turn to several passages this morning. Proverbs 12 and verse 15 says, the way of the fool is right in his own eyes, but he who heeds counsel is wise. There's the beginning of that picture. He thinks his way is right, and so he needs no more information from those who have wisdom. Proverbs 28 and verse 26. Proverbs 28:26, he who trusts in his own heart is a fool, but whoever walks wisely will be delivered. There's an individual here who trusts in his own heart. He thinks his way is right, and look at the opposite of that. The wise man is found in Proverbs 3. Let's see where his trust lies. I believe that you know. Proverbs 3, beginning in verse 5. Trust, this is the counsel from a father to his children. Trust in the Lord with all of your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all of your ways acknowledge Him, and He shall direct your paths. Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord, and depart from evil. Twice they are told, lean not on your own understanding. Do not be wise in your own eyes. Your heart and your think so will always mislead you. There's a nature about us that maybe forces that to be true over and over and over again from generation to generation. That there's something within us, there's a bent nature within humanity that we want what we want, and we want it now. So the fool receives counsel, you can't go that way, that leads to destruction, you're going to have problems, it always works that way, and the fool says, no, 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 not this time, because I've got a plan. I'm wise in my own eyes, and I have seen this through to the end, and it turns out great for me. People make foolish decisions because they want something now. And they pass rules, they forsake the laws that God has put in place in order to attain that which they want. They hate counsel because counsel says to them, slow down and think this through. Fools don't like doing that. They want it now. So you can see with the instruction from the father to the child, trust in the Lord with all of your heart. Which one's wise? The one who trusts in himself or the one who trusts in God? As I mentioned, we have generation after generation after generation of citizens, people in this world to watch as our examples. Does it work to act foolish and to be foolish? Does it pay off? Never. It never pays off. The legacy of a fool is shame. Because he doesn't know it, everyone around him knows it, and it's embarrassing. We don't want to be that person. We want to have our eyes open. We want to listen to counsel. We want to seek those who know and understand things to a better degree than what we do so we can gain the wisdom to make good decisions. That's right. Trust in the Lord. Read His Word and follow His will. The one who trusts in God is always pleasing to God. The fool, on the other hand, hates instruction. Proverbs 1:7. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. To fear the Lord is to recognize His word and to listen to Him. Fools don't want to do that. They hate His word and they hate His instruction. Proverbs 10 and verse 21. The lips of the righteous feed many, but fools die for lack of wisdom. You notice in that proverb that the lips of the righteous feed many. That's part of the proverb. So the lips of the righteous proclaim truth and principles that apply to people's lives. And many are fed. Many are fed by that. But fools die for lack of wisdom. In this very proverb, while righteousness is being taught, he is dying because he hates instruction and he doesn't want to hear it. Proverbs 15 and verse 5. A fool despises his father's instruction, but he who receives correction is prudent. Again, for us to read through these and just make the application. A fool despises his father's instruction. How well are you listening to your father? And I don't care how old you are. How well do you listen to your father? Do you take his counsel and his understanding into your heart in order to decide what you're going to do and who you're going to be? Why is it foolish to disdain the counsel of your father? Well, obviously, because your father loves you. Because your father has been intimately involved in your upbringing, in guiding you and leading you into the person that you are today. And your father is not going to intentionally mislead you or tell you something that will bring you pain. How insane would that be? That every child in this room, if your father's alive, you can turn to him and to say, what do you think about this? And know that someone who loves you more than almost anyone else on the earth will tell you the very best thing that you need to hear. Why do children disdain their father's instruction? Why do we get tired of listening to our dad? Because he tells us things we don't want to hear. And then he's right, and we hate it. Don't be a fool. Pay attention. Listen closely. By the way, when you take counsel from someone, including your father's not invincible. He doesn't have all things figured out. That's certainly true. But what we do when we take counsel is we ask, well, what do you think? What should I do? And we use that in our reasoning to decide what we will do. What you do is up to you. What we're trying to guard against is being the fool and saying, stop talking to me. I've already decided and I don't care what you think. I don't care what you saw in 1955 or why you think that applies to me. We have the internet now, Dad. And you know, now that we have the internet and information is available to all of us within seconds, we are less intelligent as a people. We are more afraid of what's going on around us. We don't have information we need in order to build strength and courage. We are falling apart at the seams with all the information available, the tip of your finger, and we are losing our IQ. It's not because the information is not there. It's because our hearts lead us into foolishness if we're not careful. And the world is racing off of that cliff, and we don't want to go with them. Not only does he hate instruction, he cannot control his tongue. This is a good way for us and for our children to spot this foolish individual, because he won't stop talking, even though what he's saying does not make sense. Proverbs 12 in verse 23, a prudent man conceals knowledge, but the heart of fools proclaims foolishness. Well, that makes sense. He's a fool in his heart. He's got things to say, and he thinks you should hear it, and so here it comes. He's going to spew out foolishness. Proverbs 14 in verse 33, wisdom rests in the heart of him who has understanding, but what is in the heart of fools is made known, because he can't keep his lips together. That's twice now we've read in the Proverbs that within the wise there rest in the heart, or he conceals knowledge. There rest in the heart of him who has understanding, that wisdom is settled in him. And I know that you know an individual like this who doesn't have a lot to say, not always blurting out what he thinks every second, but he sits quietly many times, often in our families, sits quietly at the dinner table, just watching, observing, not commenting on every little thing that's mentioned. And yet when it's time for him or for her to speak, what happens? The room falls silent. We're going to hear something worthwhile now. And you know someone like that, and so do I. And I am so thankful for them, because wisdom rests in their heart. The fool is different because he can't stop telling you what he thinks. He can't stop contradicting himself, and he can't stop changing his mind about things that have already been established by God. He's foolish in his nature, in his heart, and in his tongue. Proverbs 18 and verse 2, a fool has no delight in understanding, but in expressing his own heart. There it is again. Proverbs 18 and verse 13, he who answers a matter before he hears it, it is folly, and a shame to him. The fool will do this every time. Someone comes to you and says, so-and-so did this to me and they really hurt my feelings and I want you to take my side. The fool says, oh, that was wrong. I do take your side. I'm with you. That is not wise. That is not wise. Someone else's name has been brought into this situation. Someone has come to you and said, so-and-so did this to me and my feelings are hurt. Now, you agree with me. I've been wronged. The fool goes, yeah, sounds good. I agree with you. They shouldn't have done that. The wise man says this. Listen closely. Can we bring that individual into this room? Can I talk to him too? Now we're going to find out if this is true or not. You see, the fool jumps to conclusions based on half of a truth. The wise man says, let's bring him in the room and give him his fair shot at explaining what happened. Now, if the one who's made the accusation says, oh no, let's not do that, well, then they just revealed that they're lying to you or there's something else they've hidden about this situation. Wisdom is careful. It rests in the heart of men and women who trust in the Lord. And we know not to speak evil. We don't know the whole story about. So he who judges a matter before he hears it is foolishness. You simply lynch yourself to someone who may have lied to you. Don't do that. Regardless of how much you love the person who's come to you or want to stand on their side, see it through, listen to the matter in its entirety from both sides, and then make a decision. There's a lot to be learned from that. It's hard to do, but it needs to be done. He cannot, the fool cannot and will not be disciplined. This is going to hurt most of us as we read through this. And this guy takes a beating. And he's the only one who doesn't seem to feel it. Proverbs 12 and verse 1. He cannot be disciplined. Whoever loves instruction loves knowledge, but he who hates correction is stupid. And by the way, the Bible said it, not me. It's a bad word. Proverbs 17 and verse 10. So we know he's stupid. It says in verse 10 of Proverbs 17, rebuke is more effective for a wise man than 100 blows on a fool. Again, I want to be wise. Rebuke is more healthy for the wise when someone comes to you with wisdom and says, that's wrong, you can't or should not do that. We accept the rebuke and we move based on it. That's wisdom. The fool, how many does it take for him to still not get it? 100 blows? To be stricken on the back 100 times. My grandparents used to sit me in a room and say, now you sit right there and think about it. Man, nothing made me more angry. I got things to do thinking about what I did. But I think about that now and the fact that the fool, these blows are being laid upon this individual for his foolishness. And within the 100 blows on him, never does it cross his mind, oh, I got myself here. It's because of what I did that got me here. It doesn't cross his mind. He doesn't think about that. He thinks, I can't wait to get out from under this whip so I can go do what I want to do. He's a fool. The whip is used to correct. It's the rod of correction by name. And yet, though it is laid upon him in a brutal way, he does not understand. Punishment gives mostly our children time to think about what they've done. If you're sentenced to prison, you're going to sit in a cell. And you have a lot of time to think about what you did and how you got here. Wisdom is such a great thing because the man who wants to go out and break the law is encouraged or rebuked by his father or his grandfather. And he says, I believe you. I ain't going to do that. I don't want to go to prison. He's saved. The fool does it anyway because he wants what he wants and he's going to get it. Breaks the law. Now he will sit in prison and think. There's such great benefit to being wise and to living in wisdom. Proverbs 19 and verse 29. A disreputable witness, Proverbs 19:29, scorns justice, and the mouth of the wicked devours iniquity. Again, this individual, he is foolish, he is wicked, he can't wait to get more. He consumes it, he loves it, he lives off of it. The fool many times is tricked into doing something for the sake of the adrenaline rush. Let's do this, you're never going to feel anything like this again, I promise. Let's go do this. The fool doesn't care about the consequences. He doesn't weigh that out. He just races toward the adrenaline rush because he's serving himself. And he devours it. He consumes it. It is wicked. It is wrong. And it is hurtful to his own flesh. And yet, as the Bible describes to us the fool, we know that he trusts in himself. He hates to hear instruction. He cannot control his tongue. And he cannot be disciplined. He commits evil. We've seen some of that already. Proverbs 10 and verse 23. He wants to commit evil. Proverbs 10:23. To do evil is like sport to a fool, but a man of understanding has wisdom. To do evil is like sport. It's amusing to him. He thinks it's a game. He uses it for his amusement and for his entertainment. And that is to do evil, he uses that. Again, for the adrenaline rush. To entertain me and my group of friends. I'm going to go do this insanely foolish thing so that I can be the star of the show. Young men specifically are drawn into this easily. I'm going to go do something crazy, and all of you who are men, you know what I'm talking about. We have all done something crazy to get the attention of our friends or the girl who won't look our way. And after we do that crazy thing, you know what everybody thinks? That guy's a fool. We do it because of what we want, but we haven't thought it through. And it takes us to a place we never thought that we would be. Proverbs 14 and verse 9. Learning more about the fool, Proverbs 14:9, fools mock at sin, but among the upright there is favor. So he thinks it's sport, and he mocks at sin, thinking it will cause him no harm. Proverbs 14 and verse 16, a wise man fears and departs from evil, but a fool rages and is self-confident. The wise man, when he sees evil, he is fearful of that because he knows evil's end. He knows the wages of sin is death. He knows it will cost him his soul. And so he flees quickly. The fool rages. And he's self-confident as he takes the steps toward his own demise. The great folly of the fool, as we get to the heart of the lesson, is this. He's just not going to change. I mentioned after 100 blows, the rebuke given to him is not equal to the gentle rebuke to the wise man. The wise man moves based on the rebuke. The fool, after 100 blows, is going to march out that door and do what he wants to do. Proverbs 13:19, a desire accomplished is sweet to the soul, but is an abomination to fools to depart from evil. It's an abomination. Boy, we see this work out in the school system. For sure. I think when we're relatively young, this shows itself. We have a young man who's been told to do right by his father and his mother. There's a group of young people with him and say, come with us, we're going to go do this. And he says, I can't. I know I shouldn't do that. My dad told me, whatever he tells them. What's the next thing they say? Oh, your dad's wise. Is that what they say? Well, you're wiser than we are. Can we talk to you for a little bit? No, that's not what they say. What do they say when a wise man says, I can't do that? To protect my own character and to remove myself from something that is certainly going to cause us trouble. I'm going to stay here. What happens next? They scoff at him. They call him a wimp. He's a coward. He's not one of them. That is how the fool behaves. So again, when you stand up to our young people, when you stand up to that and say, I can't go there, I'm not going to do that, that's not right for me to be there, and then that attack comes, we just read it in Proverbs. This is how this works. They are going to attack you. That is a sign to you that you're doing the right thing. Sometimes in those special moments, a teacher walks up and says, I heard what they said to you. I'm so proud of you. You're going to make it. You're going to be okay. Because that's courage. Not what they're doing. And whether a teacher sees it or not, God knows. You have shown great courage to trust in Him and not in yourself. Proverbs 26 and verse 11. As a dog returns to his own vomit, so a fool repeats his folly. That is quoted in 2 Peter chapter 2 in verse 22. The fool who continues down that same path of destruction is similar to a dog that returns to its own vomit, or a sow, after being washed, returning to her wallow. She doesn't want to be clean. She wants to lay in the filth. And it's always the same for the fool. Characteristics of a fool, as I've read through the book of Proverbs, can be summed up in Proverbs 26. We'll just read through it together. Proverbs 26 and verse 1. As snow in summer and rain in harvest, so honor is not fitting for a fool. That's a beautiful proverb. Snow in summer, who's ever heard of that? Rain in the harvest, can't have that. Well, just like those things, so is honor that's given to a fool. It's not supposed to happen, and if it does, it's not going to go well. Like a flitting sparrow, like a flying swallow, so a curse without cause shall not alight. A whip for the horse, a bridle for the donkey, and a rod for the fool's back. You see, he's qualified there with animals. Do not answer a fool according to his folly, lest you also be like him. Answer a fool according to his folly, lest he be wise in his own eyes. It's very interesting that Proverbs 26:4 and Proverbs 26:5 are back to back. You see what they say? Proverbs 26:4, do not answer a fool. Proverbs 26:5, answer a fool. Both say according to his folly. So we're saying, well, which one is it? Should I answer him or not? The answer is, it's both. Do not answer a fool according to his folly, or ye shall become like him. And the reason why I understand this is because my dad quoted it to me almost every day of my life. My brother said something I don't like, and I come to my dad, Ryan said I was adopted. Is that true? And my dad would say, Proverbs 26:4. Ryan said that y'all don't love me. Is that true? Proverbs 26:4, son. Every day, do not answer a fool according to his folly. Do you believe him? Do you think you were adopted? No. Well, then don't mess with that. He's trying to stir you up. If you answer a fool according to his folly, now you're both the same person. If I say to him, oh no, I checked and it's actually you were adopted. Now both of us are saying foolish things that are not true. We're both fell into this pit together and we're happy to be there. And my dad's saying, get out of the pit. Do not argue with a fool. By the way, when dad says, argue not with a fool in his folly, or ye shall become like unto him, the warning's to the one who's saying, is this true? But it's also to the brother who said that thing. Because now dad's just called him a fool. And that hurt when it was done on my side, when my brother would come up and say, is Danny right about this? And my dad would say, answereth not a fool. I'm like, oh, okay, I understand what that means. He's saying I am playing the fool. Now the question is, are you going to evaluate that and determine whether he's right or not? My dad was right every time. I was trying to upset my brother. I was trying to get him going. And I said something foolish. So the proverb applies. Now you get to verse 5, and it says, answer a fool according to his folly, lest he be wise in his own opinion. Now, think of the wise man who addresses this fool who is ranting and raving about something that is absolutely not true. According to his folly, show him his error. Talk to him on a level where he is, but don't ever go down in there with him. Show him by the standard of truth, you are wrong. And here's why. Answer him according to his folly so he will feel that shame and get himself out of that pit. Both proverbs are true and both need to be done from time to time. Verse 6, he who sends a message by the hand of a fool cuts off his own feet and drinks violence. You send somebody who's foolish to go give a message for you, that's going to go south every time. He's not going to do it right. He's going to change the wording. He may ruin your life. I remember telling a friend in school, I like her, but I don't want to tell her. And he says, I'll tell her. So I'm like, sweet. Then I can just sit here and wait, and you go tell her. And it never worked out for me. They were both like looking at me and laughing. I'm like, what's he saying? Don't send your message of importance with a fool, because he's going to cut your feet off. And the message will never get to its destination. Like the legs of the lame in verse 7, that hang limp is a proverb in the mouth of fools. Fool has a proverb, he knows it, he's memorized it, and yet it's like feet that are lame and can't be used. Because though he knows it and can quote the proverb, he refuses to apply it to himself. Like one who binds a stone in a sling is he who gives honor to a fool. Like a thorn that goes into the hand of a drunkard is a proverb in the mouth of a fool. The great God who formed everything gives the fool his hire and the transgressors his wages. As a dog returns to his own vomit, as we've read before, so a fool repeats his folly. Do you see a man wise in his own eyes? There is more hope for a fool than there is for him. Let's finish with Proverbs 9, verses 10 and 12. I hope this has been useful to you, and as I said, I think to our young ones, to read through these Proverbs and to see these principles of truth laid out will save us so much trouble. Proverbs 9, beginning in verse 10. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. For by me your days will be multiplied, and years of life will be added to you. If you are wise for yourself. And if you scoff, you will bear it alone. If you are wise, you have benefited your own self in your own life. But if you scoff at the wisdom of God, you're going to bear that alone. And that is a dreadful thought. The judgment day, Jesus will say to those who are wicked, depart from me. You will be without your Creator, you will be without your God, and you will bear it alone. The invitation song this afternoon is Jesus the Loving Shepherd. In verse 3, I want you to take note of verse 3 as we sing this song. It'll say, lingering is but folly. Wolves are abound today. Do not linger at the invitation that Christ Himself extends to you to put Him on in baptism, to be saved, and to know that your home is eternal glory with God because you're faithful to His will and you've simply done that what He asked you to do. That's the definition of wisdom. If we can help you in any way, we want to do that now as we stand and sing.